Hi guys, it's me. Ever, I've been hearing a lot about the John Benet Ramsey case lately. I've done plenty of research on this. As a mom, I'm going to do a lot of research on this because I don't want nothing happening to my kid like this. Oh, it's like I will fly today. Sorry, I haven't been feeling good. Okay, so bear with me. Um, anyway, let's start from square one. Okay, John Benet was the daughter of John and Patsy Ramsey. We all know this. I'm just skimming through. They lived in Colorado. We all know this. In a big, huge 3-floor flat, or house or mansion, whatever you want to call it. And John Benet had a younger brother named Burke. But then John also, the husband, had from a previous relationship other kids. Let me see what their names is. They had an Elizabeth Pash Ramsey, a Andrew Ramsey, and a Melinda Ramsey. They lived in Boulder, Colorado. She was born August 6th, 1990, to a John Benet Ramsey and a Patsy Ramsey. Um, she died December 25th or 26th, depending on when you think the death date is. She was an American beauty queen who was killed at the age of 6 in her family's house. A long written note was found at the base of the stairs from the first floor to the second floor or third floor, whatever. And she was later found by her father and somebody named Fleet White eventually found her in the basement just after 1 p.m. She was wrapped up in a blanket with duct tape over her mouth and a garrote tied around her neck with a paintbrush that had been used for leverage. John carried her body upstairs and placed her on the floor in front of everybody. Patsy, before all this all happened, called 911 when she found the note, or supposedly found the note. I will tell you, unlike some people, I look at the evidence. I look at I don't speculate, okay? I look at the dead evidence, okay? I don't go for wild conspiracy theories. I look at what could have possibly happened to this 6-year-old child. I mean, she came home from a Christmas party, conked out. Her mom claimed to have put her to bed, okay? Let's see. What what gets me is while this little girl was screaming in agony from being strangled and clocked over the head and being abused that night to the point of death. The neighbors next door could hear this little girl scream, and it made the neighbors sick to their stomach. They knew something was wrong, but yet the parents on the third floor couldn't hear this wailing of their kid. I lived in a house like this. I lived in the basement. If I screamed, they would have known about it. There would be no way that they would not have known of me hearing me scream. If the neighbors could hear next door, this little girl was screaming loud. Okay? From away from the basement. Okay? See, the autopsy was performed by John E. Mayer, MD, who was a pathologist who conducted all kinds of autopsies on other at the offices of the Boulder, Colorado coroner. Um, she had blonde hair fixed in two ponytails, one on top of side of her head, one just below, and a half down style. I'm staying with the autopsy reports, not conspiracy. Okay. In his final diagnosis, he says that it was a ligature strangulation. There was abrasions to her head and neck. There was hemorrhages and conjunctival surfaces of the eye and skin and face, which coincides with strangling. Cranial cerebral injuries, which is to a whack of something heavy up above the head. Abrasions of right cheek. Where would she get abrasion of the right cheek unless she was smacked across the face? Abrasion or contusion to right shoulder. Abrasions of left lower back, a posterior left lower leg. Abrasions congestion to the vagina, inside the vagina, and leisure to the wrist of being because of her being tied up. So what does that say to you? It says to me that she was knocked out by something heavy, strangled, was messed with because there was abrasions and vascular congestion to her vagina, a contusion to the shoulder, so which means someone hurt her shoulder, an abrasion to the cheek, so either she got smacked in the face really hard to the right side of her cheek, and there was an abrasion to her butt and her leg. So which means, to me, it sounds like she was being held down while being spanked, maybe, and something went wrong, and they strangled her. Knocked her out first and strangled her. And the person got mad at her for struggling while taking the discipline and smacked her across the face. That's what I get from the final diagnosis here. There was a red ink drawing of a heart on her palm of her left hand, and around her neck there was a gold cross. The report also said that she also had a yellow metal ID bracelet with the inscription John Benet 122596. Kind of eerie, isn't it? Why would someone give an ID bracelet with her name on it with the date of her death? Okay? And a ring on her right hand. Okay? And if she just went right to bed, like Patsy says, then why would there be pineapple in her stomach when they examined the contents of her stomach? And why would there be a bowl of pineapple milk with just Patsy's fingerprints and Burke's fingerprints on it? People answered me that. Didn't have the father's fingerprints on it. Didn't have no one else's fingerprints on it. And they claim, people claim that she was hit over the head with the flashlight. And which I think is true because of the fact that there was a flashlight found. But Patsy and everybody claimed it wasn't their flashlight. Let's look at what the father does for a living, used to do for a living, or still does for a living. Okay? Okay? He was an American businessman. Okay? Alright? I'm trying to see. He was a president and chief executive officer of Access Graphics, a computer service company and a subsidiary of Lockheed Martin. If he was such a officer of Access Graphics and computer services and everything, why didn't he have some type of security on the house? If he was such a big person. He was named Entrepreneur of the Year by Boulder Chamber of Commerce. He grossed over $1 billion at the time. I mean, I just a lot of things point to Patsy and John and nobody else really. And the whole story about the whole DNA from the underwear from the factory, it's a stretch. I'm sorry, it's a stretch. I'm sorry. For one, I don't believe that story because due to the fact that how many times has underwear been washed? Especially for little kids who clean themselves and stuff like that. Exactly. Think think of yourself. I doubt these were just brand new underwear taken out of the package and put on her that night. You know what I'm saying? Come on. No. No parent that would go out in the middle of the night, buy a new pair of underwear, and just put them put it on her that night, right after freaking she supposedly paid the bed, because supposedly she had paid the bed that night, which no one's talks about. And I'm sorry, so no, something like that, that story like that, where the DNA is from a factory worker, but the underwear had to be absolutely fresh to be put on her and have that DNA there. The DNA would be gone by the way of the wash, okay? And no parent would put freshly new underwear like that unless it was washed a couple times first before putting it on the child. Every parent does this. Patsy wouldn't have been any different. So I put the X on that story right there. Um, and yes, parents can be stupid. Yes, parents can be stupid when they're trying to cover up for for something that happened to one of their children. Because look at what happened with Casey Anthony. Even though she got away with murder, there was still a lot of evidence stating to the fact that she was the murderer. Okay? The car, the smell of the dead body in the car, um, her going out partying. Pictures showed that she went partying after having no responsibilities of having a child whatsoever. If she was exactly looking for the child, there wouldn't be pictures of her doing with body contests and shit. Okay? Case in point. And Patsy, there has been the DNA is right on the money. I mean, the handwritten note has been proven time again that it matched Patsy's handwriting. Okay? And yes, they shouldn't have let anyone in to walk, go through the house and everything like an open house, but it's either they did it, someone in the family did it, or someone they knew that was close to the family did it, or it was a jealous neighbor. Because, come on, someone would get jealous of someone like Patsy, who had it all, who had the two beautiful kids, who had, you know what I'm saying? This person wanted to probably show that Patsy and them weren't all that perfect. And they knew what was going on in the house. And no one would have believed them. You know, it's just my saying, my thinking. Is someone connected? Because they did prove that in the underwear there was, or on the blanket or whatever, the older brother DNA on it. Why would the older brother's DNA, even though he wasn't there that day, be on that blanket? That was supposed to be John Bonet's blanket. Ask yourself that. Why would the very older brother of a previous relationship have his DNA on a child's blanket that supposedly belonged to his stepsister? Answer yourselves that. Okay? And I can understand all the spiral path throwing out, blah, blah. But even in freshly fallen snow, there would be wet marks on the sidewalk of shoes on the sidewalk. Because once you put dry shoes on something wet, that surface becomes wet itself. And that person would have had to walk on the sidewalk after walking in the snow. There would be some type of evidence of the person being outside. And the way the glass was broken in, it was broken in from inside, from the inside to outside to try to get out. But there was glass on the inside of the house. So which means this person had to go in and out without disturbing anything on the shelf that was by the window, the spider web, sidewalk, snow. You know what I'm saying? To me, that just doesn't. And there wouldn't be no footprints on the suitcase or anything. I mean, there was material in the goddamn masking tape or whatever that was placed over the kid's mouth, over John Benet's mouth, with fibers from Patsy's coat that Patsy had. It was Patsy's paintbrushes, was Patsy's handwriting. And there's video out there where it proves that it's Patsy's handwriting. I've seen a video. Okay? Where they did their own analysis. And let me tell you, it's very telling. And then on top of it, I watch a lot of body, analysis. And during one interview, she's like, no, 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 no. And she's doing this while saying no, no, no. And she's contradicting herself. And anyone who does that is lying, from what I hear. And she was like, when she was saying no, she was shaking her head yes. Shaking her head no for yes, yes for no. I mean, she was all over the place. She was cold. She was not crying. She was very domineering in the interview. I was looking to John for reassurance. A lot of eye blinking, trying to, just to me doesn't seem like a mother who is very emotionally attached or was emotionally attached to the kid. She was more attached to her son because apparently she coddled Burke more while pushing her daughter out into the public. Been stating that he had rage issues at such a young age. And I'm sorry, there's more footage of what freaking Christina Randall puts out there in her video. Where he draws the picture of his family, and John Bonet is not in the picture. He explains how they asked him about the murder, and he explains how she was hit on the head with the flashlight, how he and stuff like that. He explains exactly how the murder happened. How would a kid know how the murder happened if he was just lying in bed? I mean, it's just, I don't know. I mean, to me, it just seems like someone that was close to the Ramses or are the Ramses. And I find it funny how a couple that There was another story of a blonde girl missing in the Bahamas or whatever, goes missing and presumes dead, and the mother flies all over the place and everything. Meets up with John Benet, Ramsey's father, and marries him, or dates him, or whatever. Don't you find that kind of funny how Natalie Holloway's mother and got together? Yeah. Yeah. Let's see. Hmm, let's look at the 911 calls, okay? Let's. It was 5:52 a.m. when Patsy called 911 from a wall phone in her kitchen to report her daughter missing. Okay? She was standing only feet away from where the ransom note had been found, the top of the stairwell leading to the basement, where John Benet's body was discovered 8 hours later. Which, to me, why didn't the family search the house first? And why didn't they not find the body in the basement? I would have checked every single room, turned on every single light. I mean, why didn't they do that? It just seems kind of eerie how they did not search the entire house before calling 911. Or while on the phone with 911. 911 emergency. Police. What's going on? 515th Street. What's going on there, ma'am? We were kidnapping. Alright, please explain it to me what's going on, okay? There's a note left in our daughter's phone. A note was left in your daughter's phone? How old is your daughter? She's gone. She's gone. She's old. How long ago was it? I don't know. I just have a note. And my daughter says it's the same chipper? What? Is it the same chipper? I don't know. There's a ransom note here. It's a ransom note? It says FBTC. Victory. Please. Okay, what's your name? Are you Matthew Hampton, the mother? Oh my God. Please. Okay, I'm sending an officer over, okay? Do you know how long she's been gone? No, I don't. Please, we just got out. Is she on here? Oh my God, please. Okay, well, I am, honey. Please. Take a deep breath, please, okay? Hurry. Patsy. Here's what I don't get. If she wants the cops there so badly, I would have been on the phone, kept on the phone and saying, "Where are they? Where are they? Where are they?" And kept on the phone until they came to the. I would not have let her friends come over. I would not have called my friend. I would have had that happen before calling 911, having my friends over looking for her. And why didn't the friends search the house too and check all parts of the apartment, of the house, or whatever? I think there's something going on here. Her story of calling her friends and having them come over and check the house. I want to know why they didn't check the basement when they came over to look for John Benet. Were they banned from not looking into the basement? I mean, why didn't the parents look in the basement? They complete the basement by turning on lights, doing this. It's just, to me, just okay. Last few seconds was enhanced. Patsy thought she had hung up the phone.
Hey, Patsy.
Was reported to have heard on the tape was Lisa Hansen, 97. A female voice. Help me, Jesus, help me, Jesus. Male voice. We're not speaking to you. Child's voice. What did you find? What made this significant was that the Ramseys had told the police their son was in bed, asleep during this whole ordeal. The tape shows that was a lie. I go over with a fun to go. The detective, she says,
ABC who killed JonBenet. And while this investigation is still ongoing, I don't think it's appropriate that I say that name out loud.
Linda Arndt was the first detective on the scene at the Ramsey house on December 26, 1996, the morning John and Patsy Ramsey had reported their 6-year-old daughter JonBenet missing. Arndt was the only officer there for much of the day. She later would be roundly criticized, vilified in the press as responsible for a bungled investigation. Now she's speaking out to set the record straight, telling her side of that dramatic day 3 years ago. It all began with a call at 6:30 in the morning from her sergeant.
He said there's been a kidnapping. It involves a 6-year-old girl. There was a ransom note, a 2.5-page ransom note. And according to the ransom note, there was going to be a phone call from the author. And they were supposed to call between 8 and 10 a.m. So I was supposed to get to the house for purposes of monitoring the phone call.
8:10 a.m., Arndt arrived at the Ramsey home and meets John Ramsey for the first time.
How did he strike you? Cordial.
Cordial?
Mm-hmm.
Upset?
Cordial.
He was not upset. He wasn't frantic. He was cordial. If you were a parent with a missing child, wouldn't you be frantic? Wouldn't you be upset? Wouldn't you be like, help me find my child? Where's my child? What do we have to do to find my child? No. It was cordial.
Distraught?
Cordial.
Did it strike you at all that that was behavior that was unusual for somebody whose child was just kidnapped?
Exactly.
It's been my experience that people respond to trauma in different ways. So if someone has a response that is different from mine, I don't put judgment to it. I'll just note it.
And that is what she says she did all morning, make mental notes of all things curious, including, she says, the fact that Mr. and Mrs. Ramsey remained apart in separate rooms for most of the day. That at one point, she says John Ramsey took time out in the middle of the crisis to read his mail.
Excuse me? Excuse me? Your child is missing and maybe murdered, and you took time out to read your mail? I'm sorry, if I was a parent in this situation, I'd be out scouring the fucking neighborhood. I'd be taking my wife and scouring the neighborhood, seeing if he went over to friends' houses or anything, to neighbors' houses, checking the entire house. I wouldn't be saying, "Excuse me," and checking my mail. I wouldn't be separated from my wife in her time of grief. That just shows emotional distancing from the situation.
I remember seeing John in the kitchen, looking through his mail, and I made a note that he was looking at his mail, and then I wondered, where did your mail come from?
Isn't it possible maybe he was opening the mail looking for a clue from the kidnapper?
I don't know. And I don't speculate. It's a piece of information that I see. It's something that I know.
You thought it was unusual, however.
Yes.
I can say that it stuck out.
It
10
would
a.m.,
definitely
the
be.
deadline imposed by the writer of the ransom note for a telephone call.
And
10 o'clock comes in.
another thing about this ransom note. It specifically states $118,000. The same amount of John bonus. Okay? And the only people who would know about that is the people he worked with, the person giving the bonus to him, and his wife, and people in the household.
Goes, and there's no acknowledgement within the house from anyone that the deadline imposed by the author of the ransom note is come and gone.
Nobody said it's 10 o'clock and the kidnappers haven't called?
Nobody.
Exactly. If there was a deadline for the call, I'd be like, where are they? Why aren't they calling? I'd be frantic. You know what I'm saying? What's going on? You know? Where's my child?
He said that.
Was that something else you took note of?
Absolutely.
By 10:30 in the morning, Arndt was the only police officer in the house with John and Patsy Ramsey, their pastor, and 4 family friends. As they waited for news, the tension was mounting. Arndt called her station house for backup repeatedly, but none had arrived. How many times did you call the police department asking where your backup was and what was going on?
Well, I remember at least 2 calls. Both times I was told everybody's in a meeting. They got your message, and that was it.
Were you feeling pressure being in charge of a group this large and with anxiety that high?
I felt tremendous pressure.
1:01 p.m. Although the house had already been searched by patrolmen before she arrived, Arndt says
If it was searched by the patrolmen before they arrived, then where was John Benet's body? Why didn't they? I mean, if it was searched like they were supposed to, upstairs, downstairs, every closet, every light's on, you name it. Where was John Benet's body? How come John knew exactly where to go to find his daughter's body? He knew to flip on that light, grab the body, and bring it upstairs. Okay? I'm sorry.
that in order to break the building tension, she asked John Ramsey and his friend Fleet White to search the house again, top to bottom, looking for anything out of place. She says she gave them specific instructions not to touch anything. She says John Ramsey headed straight,
And she gave him specific instructions. Do not touch anything. If you see anything, let me know. I'm the cop. I'm investigating. And John did not listen. He went right to where she was. He knew right where she was, flipped on the light, picked her up, and brought her upstairs, disturbing the crime scene.
to the basement. She heard Fleet White scream for an ambulance, and then a chilling discovery. For Arndt, the pieces of the puzzle fell into place.
And I see John Ramsey carrying John Bonet up the last 3 steps from the basement. And my mind exploded. And everything that I had noted that morning that stuck out instantly made sense. And JonBenet was clearly dead. Then she's been dead for a while.
Yeah.
I ordered him to put JonBenet down. I knelt next to her and I leaned down to her face. And John leaned down opposite me. And his face was just inches from mine. And we had a nonverbal exchange that I will never forget. And he asked if she was dead. And I said, yes, she's dead. And I told him to go back to the room and to dial 911. And as we looked at each other, I remember, and I wore a shoulder holster, tucking my gun right next to me and consciously counting out that 18 bullets.
Why did you do that?
Because I didn't know if we'd all be alive when people showed up. I said that everything made sense in that instance. And I knew what happened.
Do you think your fear was well founded?
You bet I do. There's no doubt in my mind.
To this day?
Never wavered.
You were afraid because you thought the killer was still in the house.
I knew it.
Absolutely?
Absolutely.
1:10 p.m., Detective Arndt moved JonBenet's body from the hallway to the living room.
John Ramsey came back into the living room. And he grabbed a throw that was on the back of the chair. And he says, could you please cover her body? And as he's saying it, he's already put the blanket on top of her.
Arndt would later be harshly criticized for two key decisions: asking John Ramsey to search the house and allowing John Ramsey to place the blanket on JonBenet's body. You had to know that that was going to contaminate evidence.
It's already been
JonBenet's
contaminated.
body was in and of itself a crime scene. Would it be nice if John hadn't found JonBenet? Absolutely. And would it be nice if he hadn't put a blanket? Yeah, it would be great. And it would be nice if there were other people to help control and keep people away. That would have been wonderful. But that's not the circumstances that I had available that day.
Still alone in the living room with John Ramsey, Arndt then heard Patsy Ramsey's voice.
And I heard a wail, just a guttural moan, aching wail from the back area. It's probably one of the most pitiful things I've ever heard, and anguished. And I saw the rest of the people, the Patsy and the pastor and the four friends, come with them towards the living room. I said, if you want to say goodbye to JonBenet, this is the only time you'll have to do it. And, there's just so much. There's so much pain. And I called 911. I get my radio number. And I said, the kidnapping has turned into a murder. This house had suddenly become a homicide crime scene.
Yep.
Oh, it became hell. JonBenet was brought up about 5 minutes after 1. And at 10 after 1, nobody'd shown up. And I looked out the window to the street and I saw an ambulance slowly drive by. And I thought, I am in the Twilight Zone.
Meanwhile, the pastor led the Ramseys and their friends in prayer in the living room, holding hands as JonBenet's body lay before them.
I thought that would be the best way to organize everyone, to keep them distracted, to keep them from touching JonBenet, and to keep them focused on something other than...
You already touched JonBenet. The crime
Other
scene's
than
already
looking
been
at JonBenet.
disturbed.
1:20
listen
p.m.
to you
after
by
3
not
hours as
touching
the
her.
only officer on what Arndt calls an incredibly tense crime scene, and 20 minutes after JonBenet's body was found, backup finally arrived. The next day, the autopsy on JonBenet was conducted. Linda Arndt was there.
I hadn't seen savagery done to a child or even an adult until the doctor peeled back her scalp and saw that horrific fracture to her head. It was the length of her head.
It was 8.5 inches long, and there was something else even more disturbing.
She had trauma to her vagina.
What kind of trauma?
It would be trauma that would be consistent with
Sexual assault.
injuries seen in sexual assault cases.
Mm-hmm.
Recently?
I guess the best way to say that was what was seen was not a first-time injury.
The coroner, in fact, said the evidence was inconclusive, but ABC News has confirmed that 3 medical experts who consulted for the Boulder Police Department concluded the injuries were consistent with prior sexual abuse. As the Ramsey investigation dragged on for weeks, then months, and then years,
What did that say? This little girl was being sexually assaulted by someone she knew and trusted. There was DNA on the blanket she was covered up by. Well, whose DNA? The father's previous eldest son. How do you know that the son was not sexually assaulting her?
the criticism of Linda Arndt's actions that December day
And
continued.
people were covering
But she
for
still
the
defends her
eldest son.
actions, saying she has become a scapegoat for a flawed investigation. And Linda Arndt remains convinced that she knows who killed JonBenet Ramsey. She will not say the killer's
Giving the
name,
eldest
but has
son
no doubt that
an
justice will never be done.
Do you think this person will ever be indicted, will ever be charged or convicted?
No.
Nope.
What you're saying is, whoever killed JonBenet will get away with murder.
Yep.
Yes.
That was 1999. In June of 2001, a federal judge dismissed her lawsuit, saying Arndt failed to prove the police chiefs violated her First Amendment rights. Stay tuned to ABC News Now. And
I know there's a video where they do. The announcer's right there. I hate it.
And they showed the police this ransom note, which is one of the most bizarre ransom notes anybody has ever seen.
It was found on her pad with her pen. Okay.
There were a number of things unusual about the note. Number one, the length of the note was very long, 3 pages.
I've seen and worked a number of
That would
kidnappings
have
for the
taken
FBI.
some time to write, and for the person to have written it many times over would have taken a while to write this note and be happy with this note. So this child was dead for a while, and they were writing this note.
And most of the notes are very short. They're very terse, very succinct, and they get very specific.
And when you're writing a ransom note, it's usually 1 page. I want this money. I want this. we'll call you at this number. We want this amount of money, and you'll get your child back. It wouldn't be 3 pages long, 20 movie quotes, and shit like that. Okay?
Specific instructions, almost like bullet points. So my first impression was that this guy wrote the Magna Carta.
Listen carefully. We are a group of individuals that represent a small foreign faction. At this time, we have your daughter in our possession. You must follow our instructions to the letter. You will withdraw $118,000 from your account.
I have never seen a ransom kidnapping that asks for such a specific amount of money.
Exactly.
The body of Jean-Benet Ramsey, strangled and beaten, is found in the basement.
None of it makes sense.
What else don't we know?
Will whoever killed Jean-Benet Ramsey get away with murder?
JonBenet, the final chapter. I'm a master profiler through rhythm predictability. It might be called a deliberate murder, a tragedy, which implies it was an accident, and he wanted to know why it happened instead of what, implying he already knows what happened. On top of that, they were minimally cooperative with law enforcement. So who wrote the note? Well, a first look at the ransom note is that it was written on a notepad that had Patsy's doodles on it. So the notepad belonged in the home, and kidnapper would not bring a notepad, and especially not one with Patsy's doodles already in it. It was also written with a Sharpie that was placed back in a mug that where it belonged. And that's interesting,
And that's
especially since the ink of the Sharpie was unusual, and it was matched. The ink was matched of the ransom note with the Sharpie in the mug. So, who wrote the note? That's the question. Well, when we look at a note as a profiler or a question document examiner, we look on how people write, letter formation, letter combinations,
it's like
but also word selection. And that is because language is infinitely diverse. You see,
handwriting
no
is like
two
a
people
fingerprint.
write exactly the same. That is why you recognize your own handwriting, or that of your spouse, siblings, aunts, and uncles.
No two authors write the same.
And no two authors use the same language. You know, vocabulary is not the same, spelling is different.
Language as Patsy Ramsey.
What has thrown great suspicion in you, Mrs. Ramsey, as you know, is that some handwriting experts have said that there's a similarity between the writing on this note and your handwriting. This has been inconclusive, but the similarity of the handwriting is the strongest piece of evidence implicating you.
Well, if that's the strongest, then there's not much of a case.
Oh, really, Patsy? Ransom note. I'm gonna put this in the description so you guys can freaking watch this for yourselves. In the comments below. Go to 0.26 minutes of 1 minute and 33 minutes. It'll show the ransom note, the A, is the same A as Patsy. I mean, the B's are the same. And like I said before, and the other guy in that video said, not one handwriting is the same. It's like a fingerprint. Okay. The A's are made the same. The E's are made the same. The C's are made the same. The H's, the F's, the G's, the I's, the J's, the K's, the LMNs. I mean, she has, and they person put the ransom note up against her handwriting. And there is a similarity. Okay?
JonBenet, the final chapter. I'm a master profiler through written communication, and I use handwriting analysis, statement analysis, and behavioral trend analysis. Handwriting analysis gives us an idea about the personality.
I'm sorry, Patsy had something to do with it. Maybe she was trying to discipline JonBenet for peeing the bed and spanking her. Hit her across the face. Felt guilty about that. So she gave her a bowl of pineapple and milk. Or she said share with your brother. There was jealousy between the two of them in the past. Didn't like the fact that she took more than, you know how kids are. The kid grabbed the flashlight and whacked her over the head while mom wasn't looking. Passed out. Patsy freaks out. Takes her, John, the father, takes her down to the basement. Strangles her with Patsy's. And he then comes upstairs, tells Patsy to write the ransom note. Doesn't matter how long it takes, write the ransom note. Then has her call 911. And they tried to cover it up because of the fact that he knew that his son was actually assaulting the daughter. There was jealousy. There was problems in the family. He knew there were problems in the family, but he put his blinders on. I mean, even the words in the freaking thing were stating from the movie.
This is the quiet car. You don't remember?
My name is JonBenet Ramsey, and I'm 5 and
Movie quotes.
Mr. Hall? Hello, Mr. Stone. Listen very carefully.
Now listen to me carefully.
Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science, the most authentic voice in true crime. In this episode, we're going to listen to almost the entire Ramsey ransom note narrated
Quotes
by
from
clips
Dirty
from
Henry.
movies. Now, you may or may not be aware
Ransom.
that the movie Ransom was actually playing in Boulder cinemas at the time. In other words, over Christmas in 1996. And according to Perfect Murder, Perfect Town, that's Lauren Schiller's book, on the night JonBenet was murdered, the movie Nick of Time aired at 7:30 p.m. on a Boulder cable channel. That story also deals with an unarmed political faction that kidnaps a 6-year-old girl. And the victim is also told, listen to me very carefully. One of the guests staying with the Whites, Bill Cox, he was staying with Fleet and Priscilla that night, said he told the police that he remembered watching that movie that night, Nick of Time. And then we're also going to talk about the possibly startling relevance of a Star Trek movie. So what I want you to do as we go through this episode, we're going to play the audio twice. And what I want you to do is, once I've given you some of the background, I want you to go through the ransom note while you're listening and just get an idea of the scale and scope that potentially comes from several movies that were in circulation at that time, and a couple that weren't, such as Dirty Harry. Now, Dirty Harry is interesting for some of the very idiosyncratic references, such as talking to a stray dog. That definitely comes up. Listen carefully. That definitely comes up. I hope you've had enough rest. That also comes up. And also those references to she dies, she dies, she dies, which also appears in the ransom note. Something that I found very surprising was the almost eerie amount that comes out of the film Ruthless People, starring Danny DeVito and Bette Midler. It came out quite a long time prior to the incident. It came out in June 1986. But just the telephone call, and this is about a wealthy businessman who wants to get rid of his wife and has her kidnapped, just that phone call on its own is pretty amazing how similar it is to the ransom note. Now, you might sort of raise an eyebrow, almost like Spock would, at the reference in the basement. And the other thing that I think is worth noting is that John Ramsey, when he spoke critically or cynically or disparagingly about people who suspected them, he referred to them as the Borg. And of course, the Borg feature in that particular Star Trek movie that came out in late November 1996. Now, I've tried to get some good screenshots from the crime scene video of that Star Trek poster. I haven't really been able to get any good ones, and unfortunately, in the CBS documentary, The Case of JonBenet, they didn't really bother to replicate the movie posters. And so I suppose it's worth mentioning the other movie posters in the train room. One was an officer and a gentleman. And interestingly, there's not a practice note, but a sample of Patsy's handwriting where she refers to two gentlemen, apparently in her own the way of expressing things. And then the other thing just to mention is that there were 3 other movie posters. One was Somewhere in Time. Another one was The Devil at 4 o'clock. And then also overlooking the train room, Death on the Nile. And if you look quite on the, I think it's the sort of a counter beneath that particular movie poster on the shelf, I guess. It's kind of just cut out of that particular image, but there's a can of soda, and there are actually a couple of cans of soda in the basement and also in a basin, but I will talk about those at a later date. What I want to draw your attention to is I spent quite a long time, actually quite a few hours, trying to locate a phrase in one of these films that sounded something like, "We have your daughter." And I eventually found it after a lot of time in the movie Ransom, where the kidnapper says, "I have your son." And I was just looking for something because I thought, was that something that came from someone else, or did that also come from a film? And I believe that it actually came from the movie Ransom. Then there's a very brief reference in the movie Seven to proper burial. And the movie Seven is another movie that came out really a fairly long time prior to Christmas of 1996. It came out in the summer of 1994. And that reference, "Do not grow a brain," is the final reference from the films in the ransom note. Before 1996, the movie Crime of the Century also came out, which was about the Lindbergh kidnapping. So you can imagine that kidnapping, ransom notes,
Who are you with?
surrounding the events.
Hello, Mr. Stone. Listen very carefully.
Now listen to me carefully. Who are you with? What faction?
There's a new faction that
once to prevent your launch tomorrow morning.
I have your son. We have kidnapped your wife. We have no qualms about killing and will do so at the slightest provocation. I want $2 million. No consecutive serial numbers. No new bills. No marked bills. The money will fit into 2 Samsonite hard shell suitcases, model number 260. You are to obtain a new black American Tourister briefcase, model number 8104. In it, you will place $500,000 in unmarked, non-sequentially numbered $100 bills. Monday morning at 11 a.m., you will proceed with case in hand to Hope Street Plaza and wait for a phone to ring. You will receive further instructions then. You sound like you had a good rest. You'll need it. If you deviate from our instructions in any way whatsoever, she will be killed. Giving them a proper burial. If you so much as remove your wristwatch, your son dies. You will be watched at all phases of execution. If anyone is with you, or if any action is not carried out to our complete satisfaction, it will be considered an infraction of the rules, and your wife will be killed. Do not involve the police or the FBI. If you do, I will kill him. If you notify the police, your wife will be killed. If you notify the media, she will be killed.
If I even think you're being followed, the girl dies. If you talk to anyone, I don't care if it's a Pekingese pissing against a lamppost, the girl dies. The girl dies.
Do not inform the media, or I will kill him. No tracking devices in the money or the cases, or I will kill him. You have 48 hours to get the money. I will contact you.
Do not attempt to grow a brain. So you may have been distracted by the audio credits, but the reason I did that, well, firstly was just to credit the relevant media, but also to show just how many references there are to the movies that we've spoken about in the ransom note, especially the first 2 pages. The last page essentially just has one reference, and then I think some of the closing sentiments are from the writer's own imagination.
I mean, seriously. Now let's look into Burke, the younger brother. If I can't show it because of copyright, I will.
John Benet's brother, Burt Ramsey, finally breaks his silence. Did you murder your sister, John Benet?
I'm sorry. Him smiling throughout the thing, like, haha, I got away with it. It's creepy. I don't care who you are. I don't know. Don't care if you're autistic or not. I have autistic family members, and when you're nervous about when they're nervous about something, or they think they got away with it, they'll smile through it. There's not one tear dealing with his sister in this interview. There was, oh, I just want my sister murderer to be found. That didn't come out of his mouth. I mean, it just, he seemed annoyed.
Your sister John Benet was killed. There were 3 people in that house that we know the identity of, and you're one of those 3, you, your mother, and your father. But in the 20 years that have gone by, you're the one that has never spoken. You've never talked about this publicly, and you've decided to do so now. My question for you is why now, and why here?
For a long time, the media basically made our lives crazy. I mean, it's hard to miss the cameras and news trucks in your front yard, and we go to the supermarket sometimes and there'd be a tabloid, with my picture, Dominique's picture, plastered on the front.
You
So they
can
would
tell
follow us
he's
around.
reveling in that type of attention. That he's finally getting the attention he wasn't getting when John Benet was around. He's relishing it.
Seeing that as a little kid is just kind of a chaotic nightmare. So I was pretty skeptical of any sort of media. It just made me a very private person. As to why I'm doing it now, it's the 20th anniversary, and there's apparently still a lot of attention around it.
A lot of attention around it. 20 years. I'm gonna relish the attention that this case is getting because it's focusing on me now. I want the attention.
My goal here is that you answer all the questions. You said I can ask you anything. Nothing is off limits. You speak about this one time. Some people have speculated that your parents weren't protecting you, they were hiding you.
Like he's nervous.
And that for this last 20 years that you've been hiding out instead of just choosing not to speak. What do you say to that?
For the last 20 years, I wanted to grow up like a normal kid, which does not include like going in front of TV cameras.
But if you had answered the curiosity, might that have stopped it all?
To me, it seemed like it would rouse it all up again.
This made you look more guilty.
I want to ask you some tough questions, but first, let's turn the hands of time back a little bit. When you look back, was Christmas like a really big deal at your house?
Yeah. Decorations in the yard, on the inside. My parents would throw a party every year.
Hello, I'm Patsy Ramsey. Daddy got
If
here,
you
but
notice,
this is John Bonet.
Patsy is more towards her daughter. She seemed closer to her daughter than her son. Why aren't the kids together? Why is he not playing with his little sister in this footage? Just question yourself this. Where's John, the father?
And we'd like to welcome you to our home and wish you a very Merry Christmas.
Now, 2 days before John Bonet was murdered, that was when the party was at your house, right?
Yeah.
And you had people tour the house?
I think there was like a Boulder home tour thing. Like, we weren't the only people that did it.
Right. They went house to house.
Yeah.
Looked at all the decorations. So when do you guys open gifts? That Christmas Eve or Christmas morning?
Christmas morning.
Do you remember what you did that morning?
I remember peeking down, and I remember seeing like an electric train and a bike. And I was super excited.
Was John Bonet with you?
Yeah.
Did she peek too?
See how hesitant he was to talk about his sister? To talk about whether she was there or not? Like, really, I have to talk about my sister? This is my time now. When they started talking about him, when he came down, so, yeah, I came downstairs, But when he came talking to his sister, he's like, yeah. There's a shift in the tone of how he talks there.
So, yeah.
Did you get what you had asked for that year?
Nintendo 64.
And what did John Bonet get?
I think she got a big dollhouse. We both got bikes.
Do you remember the last time you saw John Bonet alive?
I want to say it was in the car on the way back from the Whites.
I think this is the last picture that was ever taken of her alive.
I don't remember the hair being that long, but
it's hard to believe.
I don't remember his hair. He's laughing. The hell? People, I mean, oh my God. This is the last picture. I would be like, yeah, that's the last picture, yeah. You know, I'd be upset. I'd be like, I miss my sister. Yeah. All he says, oh, I don't remember her hair being that long.
If a short time later, she would be dead.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, huh. This is what they know? Oh, yeah.
Where was your bedroom in relation to hers?
So it was like kind of around the corner, through the playroom, down the hall.
This is your room?
Yep.
After you went to bed, did you hear anything out of the ordinary at all during the night?
No.
You don't recall?
How could you not? The little girl was screaming when she was screaming.
Waking up, hearing anything in retrospect?
No.
Do you remember waking up that morning?
Yep. The first thing I remember is my mom bursting in my room, really frantic, saying like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, running around my room looking for John Bonet. At that point, I was awake.
Why did you feel scared? You know, when mom came rushing in.
I felt like something.
And everyone portrays Burke at the time as a small even shorter than me, kid. And this footage right here, he looks taller than me. It looks like he could handle strangling and doing something to his sister. He looks very tall for his age.
She left, and you could kind of hear her freaking out.
Very interesting choice of word right there.
And the next thing I remember is a police officer coming to my room.
Very rehearsed. I was told again. That was proven.
And shining a flashlight.
It was still dark when this happened.
Yeah, I was just laying there.
What?
If I was a kid not knowing what to do, not knowing what's going on, I would have went to my mom and said, "What the fuck is going on? Where's John Bennett? Where, I'd be asking questions. I would not be staying in bed."
What time did she come in?
Early, I don't remember.
It had to be. It was still dark, so it had to be pretty
Yeah.
early. Did she turn on the light when she came in?
I don't remember if she did or not.
How long after she came in before the police officer came in?
Under an hour.
So she comes in, and were you asleep when she came in? Did she wake you up?
She woke me up.
And she's running around your room saying, "Oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh." What else did she say? Did you know she was looking for John Bonet?
I remember her saying, "Where's my baby? Where's my baby?"
So after she left, what did you do?
I just laid there and didn't really know what else to do.
It seems
I would have
really
been helping
odd to
mom
me
look for the child.
You're 9 years old and your mother comes.
If my mom came in looking for my little sibling, I'd be like, "Mom, she's not in here. I'll help you look, though." Or, "Mom, I know you're searching. Let me help you look." No, he stayed in bed. That to me just
Comes in the room in seemingly the middle of the night because it's dark and says, "Where's my baby? Where's my baby?" And then runs out of the room and you just lay there. As opposed to getting up and going out and saying, "What's going on?" And then a police officer comes in your room, which I assume is the first time in your entire life that a police officer has come in your room with a flashlight looking around, and you still just stay in bed.
To be fair, I didn't know it was a police officer. It's just kind of.
But somebody comes in your room with a flashlight, and you never get up and say, "What is going on here?"
Exactly.
I guess I kind of like to avoid conflict, or I don't know. I guess I just felt safer there.
That's not a reaction of
I'm not the worry type. I'm not the. I guess part of me doesn't want to know what's going on.
Critics would say you weren't curious because you already knew.
Exactly.
You didn't have to get up and go check because you knew exactly what had happened.
I was scared, I think. I mean, I didn't know if there's some
were scared, then
bad guy downstairs.
You run to mom and papa.
Chasing off with
like most
gun, or I had no idea.
You eventually do go downstairs. Describe that scene for me.
I just remember, I have an image in my head of the kitchen, and it was really early morning, and there were a few people around that I didn't really know. There might have been a police car, I think. I just remember kind of walking slowly downstairs, and everybody just being like, "Hey, we're going to take you to Fleet."
Somebody eventually told you John Bonet's been kidnapped, right?
They didn't say kidnapped. They said she's missing.
Missing.
Yeah.
And who told you that?
I remember a detective or something coming in and interviewing me. He told me.
Were you scared for John Bonet yet?
I think I was trying to be positive.
Do you remember them asking you if you knew what happened to your sister?
I told the guy, I was like, she's probably hiding somewhere. Did you check the whole house? Or maybe she's outside. Or the next thing I remember is going to another one of our friends' houses. Everyone was really sad over there. My dad came and told me, "John Bonet is in heaven now." And he started crying. And then I started crying.
This kid is a tall kid. He looks like a full-grown teenage kid here. Everyone putting him as like this 5-6-year-old kid who's small, meek. If you watch this, see how he looks in this footage. He looks like a teenager in this footage, like he's fully grown. I mean, look how tall this kid is. This kid could have taken down his sister.
So you go from thinking she's missing to she's been found, she's actually dead, she's in heaven. Your dad tells you.
My dad just said she's in heaven now, and that was kind of like, how is that possible? Like,
and what did you say?
I started crying. I don't think I said anything. I didn't believe it at first.
You must have realized this has gone way bad. Did you go to John Bonet's funeral?
Yeah. Yep.
The body of 6-year-old John Benet Ramsey was laid to rest in Atlanta today, but the mystery surrounding her strangulation is far from over.
Yeah, I remember the viewing. I remember the casket was small and her eyes were closed. I think one of her eyes was a little bit like droopy or something, and I thought that was weird.
How did you feel seeing her?
A lot of sadness. I don't think I really fully grasped, like, after this, I won't see her again. I remember my parents being really upset. I can't remember my dad leaning down and giving her a kiss.
Did you have anything to say to her when you saw her in her casket?
I just kind of stood there, I guess, in kind of disbelief. Or I don't remember if I put anything in it.
Was it traumatizing to see her?
That was weird. That was traumatizing a little bit. Had I ever been to a funeral before, period? I'm not sure.
Who was with you when you were standing and viewing her?
Me and my mom, my dad.
How were they behaving?
And look at this.
It's all my
Everyone, they showed a picture of him coming out of the funeral. Everyone else is all depressed and sad. He's there. Like, I don't have my sister anymore. Thank God. Just look at this one picture.
And they're both crying, just saying goodbye, I guess.
In the days after the funeral, as a 9-year-old watching your parents go through this,
You look like a very tall 9-year-old.
were you concerned about your mother?
I don't think I was thinking about it that in depth. I think I was just wanting people to be not sad, and that she would cry, and then I think she would like maybe fall asleep or something, and then she'd start crying again. They'd tell me to come upstairs and comfort her.
Are you aware of these different theories that are out there? Theories that you killed your sister, theories that your mother killed John Bonet, and theories that an intruder killed John Bonet?
I don't know the details. Look at it like a lot, you know?
Right. Ever before?
No. I feel like the listen carefully is very distinct, and I've never really seen that. I don't know. I've never really looked at it closely because I'll see it and kind of get.
She lost her temper with John Bonet in the middle of the night when she wet the bed.
Somebody gets upset over bedwetting. That's one of the things that's been proposed.
And that Patsy threw her against a hard surface in the bathroom, fracturing her skull. Then she got scared, and she took her down to the basement and staged a sex crime. And because she wasn't dead yet, finished her off by strangulation. Covered her up, then went upstairs, wrote what appeared to be a ransom note.
When you cover someone up, it shows a sign of remorse, sign of emotional attachment to that person.
And then at 5:30 in the morning, started screaming that John Bonet was gone.
Have you heard that theory?
I've heard the cover up part. I haven't heard the wet the bed fit of rage thing.
What do you remember about that? About John Bonet getting fed or getting?
And he wrote a swear bed
What would happen from Champagne with her bed? What would mom want to do?
Mom would change the sheets, all that stuff. And then said the work.
Did John went to bed?
Yeah, did she went to bed at 6? I don't remember. Maybe. I definitely.
Your mother fly into a rage?
No.
Did you ever see her throw anything?
No.
Did you ever see her break anything in a fit of anger? Smash anything down?
No.
Dishes, lamps?
No.
Throw anything at your father? Get lots of attention.
Yeah.
Did you ever feel like she got all the attention?
No, it was never an issue. It's just normal to me.
Let me change the subject now and kind of one call. Were you there when that call was made?
John said call 911, and of course Patsy goes and grabs the phone and calls 911. But when she hung it up, she thought she had hung it up completely. And months later, the police discovered there were other voices heard. Now, those voices have come into somewhat dispute. Some people say they hear Burke's voice, in the distance.
In his book, Jean Benet, Inside the Ramsey Murder Investigation, Thomas claimed that by enhancing the tape, you could hear John and Patsy talking to their son Burke. He claims that's important because the Ramseys reportedly told police their son was asleep at the time of the call. If true, Thomas claims it suggests the family was altering their story right from the start.
Exactly.
Where were you when that phone call was made?
To my bed.
How do you know?
I don't remember getting up until my dad came in there.
I just been laying in bed with my eyes open. And so thinking what might have happened.
Did you hear mom and dad talk?
I heard mom like going to the bed.
Going psycho?
Yeah,
Did you go down and see what was going on?
stay in bed.
Very rehearsed.
Former police investigators with the Boulder Police Department, Detective Steve Thomas and Chief of Police Mark Beckner, both say there was a voice at the end of the 911 call, and that your voice was heard saying, "What did you find?" Did you speak those words?
No.
Were you there when that call was made?
No.
So you were not
Liar.
there,
It's
and
mine
you did
for
not
it.
speak those words.
That's correct.
It's also been speculated that your father can be heard yelling, "We're not speaking to you."
Definitely don't remember that.
Here's footage of
Really?
when
We
he was
kept
like
here because we
9
wanted to
years
look at some tape and kind of get your reactions to some of these things. This was 13 days after John Benet's murder. Nobody in the world has seen this before.
But it's like great, maybe you could try your picture here with your family for a long time. But it doesn't mean that. It's not a test of your drawing. Just so I get to know your family and stuff like that. So the first person you would draw would be. Oh, I got one. Okay. So who's next? Who would you draw next? Okay. So what's your mom do? She woke up at what is the mom? What do you like?
look how nervous he looks.
That's it? Was your mom the kind of mom that could watch anything? Yep. Both of you understand just you or just anybody else in your family? Or you love your dog? Me. What about you?
This is
Notice that he wasn't about to draw himself into the picture because he always felt away from the
the
family.
first time you've seen it, right?
Yeah.
When you see that, do you remember it?
Yeah. I remember the room.
Yeah.
I think I didn't know it was a psychologist.
So at the time, you're 9. And the observations
And
that
much
were
taller
leaked
than
to the
John.
press was that it was unusual that you felt safe, that you showed little warmth towards the family, that you displayed an enormous lack of emotion and almost an indifference, and you had difficulty opening up about the family, similar to children who feel that there are things they shouldn't say. To a father, a mother, yourself, that John Bonet was not in the picture at all.
Exactly.
And you said that you were, quote, getting on with life. Do you remember saying that?
I don't remember saying that.
What do you think about those observations?
Watching the video, I think I look like a normal kid. I think maybe that's just my personality, but I'm a little, I don't remember what was going through my head, but she was.
To this psychologist, take a look.
What do you think happened to your sister?
This is the most important part. People, listen to what this kid says. And I will freaking say what the caption says. This is Burke. I know what happened to my sister. Unintelligible. She was killed. I think. Well, I asked my dad where did they find her body, and my dad said I found the unintelligible in the basement to himself. I think that someone took her very quietly, took her to the down to the basement. How does he know these things? And he took a knife out and he whoops like that, like he's using a flashlight, like he had a flashlight in his hand, and he went. Do you think how he died? This is the doctor. Probably a hammer hit her in the head with it.
What do you think you're saying?
Look how uncomfortable he got. He's like, oh crap. I said that.
Well, I mean, she's asked me what happened to my sister. I'm like, well, she was killed. And she keeps kind of going deeper. She's like, well, like, what do you think happens? And I'm like, you know what happened? She was killed. Why are you asking me about this again?
Discovered that there was undigested pineapple in John Bonet's stomach. Well, the police didn't even know there was pineapple. They went back and they started to look at all the photographs. When did John Bonet eat the pineapple? Where did she eat the pineapple?
And police discovered fingerprints on a bowl of pineapple left in the family's dining room on the morning of the murder.
I didn't put the bowl there, okay?
I didn't put the bowl there, but yeah, her fingerprints are on the bowl, okay? Mm-hmm.
I did not put the bowl there. I would not do that.
Those prints belong to one of the two.
Yeah.
They did.
They do. And she was shocked that they found her fingerprints. Because she probably tried to wipe them off, but...
The fingerprints on the bowl are Patsy's, according to police, suggesting that she's the one who gave the fruit to her daughter. But if Patsy did give it to John Bonet and is lying about it, then investigators wondered, could she be lying about everything?
But what was more interesting was that next to that bowl, there was a glass of tea. And on that glass of tea was Burke's fingerprints.
So Patsy and Burke were down there with her, not the father.
Did you and she eat pineapple together at any time during the day?
Maybe. Like, I don't remember specifically.
Every time when they get to asking a specific question about what happened that day, oh, I don't remember. Something like that you would think you would remember because of the fact that it would have led up to her death. Okay.
Eating pineapple, but very well could have. Like, would you remember eating pineapple 20 years ago? Like, you know.
There was a flashlight and a baseball bat found at the house, and investigators thought one of those could have caused John Bonet's head wound.
We know from the evidence that she was hit in the head very hard with an unknown object, possibly a flashlight
or similar type item.
And what did Burke say during the interview with the psychologist? That she was hit by a blunt object? How would Burke know?
The blow knocked her into unconsciousness, which could have led someone to believe she was dead. The strangulation came 45 minutes to 2 hours after the head strike.
Did you hit your sister over the head with a baseball bat or a flashlight?
Absolutely not.
If someone in your house did, do you think you would have heard it?
Probably. Yeah.
There was a book written by the lead investigator in this case that set forth some of his theories. He says one of the reasons that he believes that you are the culprit here is that on the day of your sister's murder, you never asked about her welfare.
Well, it's pretty much just, hey, we can't find your sister. What do you think?
Yeah. Why didn't he ask about his sister's welfare? Like, is she okay? Where is she? No, not me.
Happens, and I was like, well, she's probably just hiding somewhere. Like, you guys looked around the house. The next time I talked to somebody, she's dead.
When did you really find out that John was dead?
I was at Franny's house. There was something that was sad. And my dad told me that.
You see how good this kid is? Every time we listen to him.
Started crying.
I think people are reacting to the fact that you seem to be unbothered by all of this.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, I can tell you I was very emotional at the Fernies, and I would just randomly cry out of nowhere. I guess it's a combination of sitting in there with this weird guy that I'd never talked to before and asking me all these personal questions. It's a combination of that and just kind of, at some point you have to move on. And I'm not saying I moved on then. It might have been kind of the other end because I didn't really get it, but you got to stop crying at some point, I guess.
So the lead investigator thinks you're the culprit because you had previously been violent with John Bonet. Had you ever violently attacked your sister?
No.
There was previous accounts of him being violent to her. Okay? And he denies it. Lie right there.
Did you hit your sister with a golf club?
And he, he was out there with the little wiffle ball and off ball. And she walked up behind me around that time and clipped her right on the cheek.
Okay.
She screamed bloody murder.
Did you hit your sister with a golf club?
Not on purpose. She was standing behind me and I pointed like that.
So you accidentally clipped her in the cheek, I believe it was?
Something like that, yeah.
On your backswing?
Yeah.
Okay. Was that on purpose?
No, absolutely not.
Did you intentionally hit John Bonet in the head with a golf club?
No.
There was some theory that someone had used a stun gun on her.
Yeah.
And then an alternate theory was that the spread of the marks that they were alleging might be a stun gun were actually the ends of train tracks that might have been poked into her. You had a train set at home, right?
Yep.
Did you ever hit her with it? Did you ever hit her with the train tracks?
No.
Did you ever
Bullshit.
No.
poke her with the train tracks?
The moment you said that, I was like, how would I even do that? Like,
Yeah.
I never did anything like that.
The autopsy did not identify that your sister was sexually abused, but experts that have analyzed it said it was possible. Did you ever have any knowledge or suspicion that John Bonet had been sexually abused or molested in any way?
No.
This wasn't anything you'd ever heard, thought of, suspected? She never said anything to you? You never saw anything that...
Absolutely nothing that would lead me to believe that anybody was sexual.
Bullshit. Well, do your own analysis. You'll see what I found out.